Everybody, today is Tuesday, March 8th, 2021, and this is Coffee and Crabs. I'm Tommy Luganville.
Brian Jordan.
We are here at Techport. I'm the director here at Techport, and Brian, you're the founder of Jordan R&D.
Correct.
And president, CEO, and...
President, CEO, also with our nonprofit Robiotech Corporation, where we
Okay.
design prosthetics for, people overseas, some projects with that too. So we got... Jordan R&D has got his fingers in a multitude of things. So.
Great. All right. Well, so the way this typically works is it's a little less formal of a broadcast. I know.
I like it this way.
Yeah. I know a lot of us have a little bit of Zoom fatigue. Webinars, symposiums, they're all done online now. This is more of a just a pre-chat. I think part of why we're doing this is because Brian and I have been a part of something called Progress Culture for the last year. And oftentimes we are guests and we're guests at the same time. And typically we have interesting conversations that go in all sorts of different directions. That I feel funny saying this, that show is probably way more formal than this. Yeah. Even though it's not really a formal show.
It's formal, but I think that show... How do we put it? It goes more in a philosophical direction.
There you go.
It's really philosophical, and I love it. Dominic Kragman does a great job, but I think here we want to do something that's a little bit different. Not in a negative way, but different in the sense that we're going to talk about things related to the world market, the U.S. market, and local things that are going on here as well, related to technology, business, and wherever it leads us. Like Tommy said, a little less formal.
Yep.
But not as philosophical. I don't know. It could get philosophical whenever you have me here. So.
I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, Dominic Fragman and Paul Murphy from Sonic Spirits. They've renamed themselves. Yeah. Pretty.
I wonder where of
that. Yeah. Sonic Spirits. And I'm a big fan of the name. It's what is that? An alliteration?
Yeah. Is that what it's called? Alliteration?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. So like Coffee and Crabs. Yeah. It's an alliteration.
Yeah, exactly.
CC. All right, so first things first, today is International Women's Day. So thank you and congratulations to all women across the world.
Absolutely.
I want to thank especially all the women that have helped me in my life, starting with my mother, my wife, and now my daughter, but also a lot of the women that I've worked with. I've had a lot of really close business relationships. And for whatever reason, I tend to work well with women. Maybe it's because women are good listeners and I talk a lot. So maybe that's why I get along. I don't know. No, but all jokes aside, I've had a lot of strong relationships with women in business over the years. And my 2 cents before I was going to ask you about some women that have been influential in your life. My 2 cents is that women, for a long time, they've been a majority of the population. I believe women are well on their way to being the majority of the workforce in terms of business and corporate culture. Right now, a lot of women work in things like the service industry, but I think there's a shift taking place.
Absolutely.
And it's becoming more and more obvious to someone like me who has dealt with a lot of young folks, especially in the classroom, that the young ladies are they're taking their education seriously and they're taking their work seriously.
Yeah.
There's some biological barriers that I know women have dealt with over the years. A major one being childbirth. But what I've found is that women are learning how to deal with that and work and balance that out. And as they balance that out, young men need to look out. They need to,
absolutely.
Or they need to collaborate is what I should really say.
Yeah, collaborate. I think that's probably the better word. When you say look out, I think that kind of stimulates more of an adversarial relationship, which really it shouldn't be.
Agreed.
Just to echo what you said, all those women in my life are very important. My mom, my wife, and my daughter. And for the past few, since the beginning of time, women have been marginalized, by men. And I think once we recognize the strengths of women, you'll see, I don't know if you ever guys have planned to have more kids, if you have a boy, you'll see the difference between the two. The difference that I've noticed, the girls are typically faster. They learn faster. They're potty trained faster. They typically mature faster than boys. And I think what you said earlier, all that has an advantage, in the workforce. Like you said, they typically are better listeners than guys. So,
which is interesting because usually you learn a lot more when you're listening.
Absolutely. And I found, again, just could be my opinion, the women in my life have been superb financial managers. My mom, managed a shoestring budget in our household, with a dad that was, an alcoholic and was a spendthrift, and she had to manage what little money she got to feed us. And it was just amazing, nothing short of amazing. And my wife is the same way, coming from, I think we talked last week, I came from a hyper male environment, dad played football, Navy guy, and, women have their place and it's in barefoot and pregnant is what he thought. And that's, some of the things I had to unlearn growing up, and realizing that, especially when you have a daughter, you realize, man, they can do everything so that we can do. So we should not continue to marginalize them. So,
yeah, well, I think hopefully, at least as far as, there's certain things that I hear about that are crazy to me, the way that women were treated or things they had to deal with, when my mom was my age. And I think about it and that was only 36 years ago or so. And,
oh God, no. Yeah.
And it's just, so I personally feel that as I've gone through the years, things have gotten better. I know that they're obviously not exactly where everyone wants them to be. But things like International Women's Day and taking a day like today seriously, or even International Women's Month, seems to be a growing trend in people having conversations.
Right.
So to all the women, thank you.
Thank you.
Especially women in technology, innovation. A stat that I'll throw out real quick because I think it's important is we did a symposium for women breaking the glass ceiling on Friday, and one of the keynote speakers, I believe the number was either 7 or 17%. So all patents issued in the United States, it's below 20% go to women.
Wow,
which is insane. But she was quick to recognize something really important, which was, it's not that the U.S. Patent Office is necessarily intentionally marginalizing women. It's that women aren't applying for as many patents.
Right.
And so that goes to this idea of, okay, well, even when we recognize equality, there are things that we need to do to improve metrics. And one of them would be encouraging women to apply for more patents,
right,
or encouraging women to go into fields.
I think that's a lot of it. That's a lot of the things, you hit the nail on the head. They don't know, and the encouragement is the important part, because they don't know. They don't understand that a lot of these things are options for them. A lot of these fields are typically, looked at as things men do. Men get patents, men go in the military. And so they didn't know. I mean, my daughter, didn't know that, when she was younger, she's like, what? Women fly planes? Like, yeah, absolutely. It's not something she wanted to do, but
right.
But I made sure she recognized that that's an option. You can do whatever you want. Anything a man can do, you can do. There are no preconceived notions of what are girl jobs and what are boy jobs, or male, female, or however you want to say it.
Yeah, and the thing that I think and you got to walk before you run. But the thing that that just troubles me or I'm concerned over is, we're getting better, but let's just say we do get to a point where women and men are truly equal. We still got a lot of countries around the world that have a long way to go.
Yes.
And America, we're like 4 or 5% of the world's population or something.
5% last I checked.
5% of the world's population. So 50% of our population is women. 5% of so 5% of the world is American. So only 2.5% of the world population is an American woman.
Right.
So if we have equality for American women, that's still only 2.5% of the entire world's population.
But the thing about that you have to keep in mind, America typically sets the trend.
Very true.
People want, when I was in Saudi Arabia not too long ago, or many years ago now, these women are becoming liberated. They see what's going on over here, and they want what's going on over here.
That's true.
And so, believe it or not, they're fighting for that. I mean, you're talking, there are women getting stoned for infidelity. I said, well, what happens to the guy? Well, nothing happens to him, but she dies. She gets punished. And I'm like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah. Well, but you're right. You on a note of optimism, Brian's correct. Someone has to set the example. So as long as we're on the right path, and people are looking towards us for inspiration or even maybe templates, and I know we look to other countries, right? I know we look to places like New Zealand and some of the European countries for the things that we do. But America, we do set trends. So thank you for highlighting that. But okay, so in the flavor of international and national, because we are supposed to be talking about technology and innovation on this show. I just about an hour ago found out that the European Union approved Microsoft acquiring Bethesda Games for $7.5 billion. Wow. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. So I'd always known that Bethesda Games was more or less, at least as far as I'm concerned, a local company.
Right.
Because I grew up in Rockville, Maryland, and Bethesda Games is headquartered in Rockville, which most people don't realize, because it's a huge gaming company. And when I say gaming, I mean video games, computer games.
Anything people would notice? No, they created something.
Oh Lord, mainstream? It's I believe Doom.
Really?
Yeah.
The old Doom, like
it through some like acquisitions and things like that. Because Bethesda Games, there's a whole lot of different subsidiaries, and but there's what they have is they have all these studios, right? And each studio kind of has like a different portfolio,
right?
But they were started in 1986, headquartered in Rockville, Maryland. They still have a huge presence in Maryland. Most people don't talk about them, which always boggled my mind, because you've got this internationally famous company that's in the heart of the state. I mean, it's right smack in the middle of the state.
Wow.
But a little bit of that has to do with the fact that they do so much international work.
Right. And that was my question for you. What does the EU have to do with that? Why are they?
Yeah, it's because over the years there's been like acquisitions, and also because the European Union has a lot of thoughts on the things that Microsoft and Facebook and Google and Apple do in the confines of the European Union, because they're very big on antitrust.
Right.
So if they feel that any one company has too much control or power, they typically go to court to try and see if there's some sort of monopoly that's being created.
Right.
And
that's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
It's kind of,
we don't really.
Yeah, I don't want to talk politics in particular, but it almost sounds like almost socialism, kind of like what Theodore Roosevelt did in the turn of the century. He broke up all of those monopolies.
It is socialism, but that's Europe. Yeah,
But yet they have a lot of influence over that. So it's kind of like circling back when we talk about how we have influence in the world, but the European Union is so powerful.
Yeah, but it's because I believe, maybe the stats are always changing, but I believe if you consider the European Union as one economy, isn't it like the biggest economy in the whole world or something?
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but
it's like
I would imagine, considering you have countries like Germany, France, all of Europe. Even though Britain, I think technically they're part of the EU, but they still rely on the pound, right? How does that work? I know they're still based on the pound, but they are part of the EU.
Yeah. So oddly enough, I've actually done a lot of I had to do a lot of research on the European Union. But most of the research I had to do was European Commission, because when I was in school, we were studying more of the history of how the European Union came to be. Essentially, I like to look at the European Commission as kind of like the 13 original colonies.
Yes, I was going to say that.
And the Commission was, everybody had their own currency. They had their own borders. but they all kind of had this loose agreement with one another.
Right.
And they had different languages, which is very similar to the 13 original colonies, right? People spoke German, Dutch, English, Spanish. Then, similar to what United States went through when we said, wait a second, we all need to reciprocity, right? We all need to have the same currency.
Right.
We all need to agree on a language. That's what the European Commission started to go towards when they created the EU. Now, they don't necessarily have a universal language that they've agreed upon.
Well,
but they all speak English.
Yeah, that's my point. I was going to say they all speak English because, I used to fly over there. We go from England, get handed over to a French controller, but they all spoke English. I mean, English is the aviation language. Well, it's the world business language as well.
Absolutely.
We've had German business people go to China. They all speak English because probably Germans speak Chinese, and how many Chinese speak Germans? I'm sure there's some, but English is the international language. But
the British, when they were forming the EU, they said, well, we'll join, but we're not giving up our currency.
Right.
And they kind of had a good case for it. I mean, it was the strongest currency in the world at the time. I believe it still is.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exchange rate is today.
1.38.
Today?
Yes.
You looked it up today?
Yeah, because my son's in England, so he just had some issues. He had
what do you have, a computer in your brain or something? Like what?
I looked up this morning for the simple fact he had some stuff. I was like, "What is that in dollars?" She's like, "Oh, it's like $300," or it's like. And I was like, "Oh, what's 1.348?" Okay.
So strongest currency in the world. They didn't want to give it up. I don't really blame them, because we don't need to go down this rabbit hole.
No,
but
why not?
but the idea. Okay, so if you're England, the idea is this. If you join the European Union, you're giving up that power of your currency.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, you're making yourself at the disposal of all the other members of the EU, right? I mean, we've seen this play itself out. There are strong members of the EU, and there are weak members.
Like Greece.
So when Greece so here's the problem with the EU. They still issue their own individual sovereign debt.
I don't want to aware of that. That makes sense, though. That makes sense.
Well, think about it.
Why would I? Yeah.
Well, but think about it like this: the state of Maryland can issue bonds.
Yeah.
The state of Virginia can issue bonds, right? Now over here in America, if Virginia defaults on their debt, it doesn't screw up our whole economy.
Right. It doesn't screw up of course.
Yeah, but we've got 250 years of people realizing, okay, if Virginia defaults, we don't have to worry about the whole American economy.
Right.
But the EU is so new, 20, 30 years old now. If Greece issues debt and defaults, it makes the rest of the European Union look bad.
Right.
And so England was like, we don't want any part of that.
But see, I remember that happened. I remember Greece because they were all for it because
of course they were.
They were because they were the weaker members. I remember.
Yeah, because they wanted they wanted the euro. Yeah, them and Italy, Italy. Italy was in the same boat.
But okay? Now that being said, not we're going down this rabbit hole. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What's the benefit of a country, say like Germany, who had the mark was actually it was strong until East Germany came back together. Then it kind of took a little dip, but what's the benefit of a company like Germany that's actually fairly strong?
Yeah, so I mean, some Germans would say there is none, but the argument was the sheer volume of when you bring all those pieces together, your economy is so large that when you go to political negotiation tables, right, you're negotiating as like a giant powerhouse rather than just Germany by itself.
Right.
And so tariffs, trade, transportation, because remember, these countries they're all right next door to each other.
And you don't need passports now.
Exactly.
You don't need passports to go from, we were in Germany. God, my brother was there. So we went, and I was like, oh, we're in France now?
Yeah.
I didn't know we had
so transport of human labor, like human capital. You can all of a sudden, your citizens can all of a sudden work anywhere. They can work anywhere, yep, right? Because they get in the car. So like I drive to Southern Maryland, kind of like it's nothing. Drive an hour. Now, if I lived on the border of Germany, I could go to France?
France.
Probably.
Because my brother lived in Solingen, and France was literally half hour away.
There you go.
It's the equivalent of going to Virginia.
Yeah, there you go.
To Dahlgren.
So that's the idea.
Yeah. So and that's a good thing. but it's also kind of breeds a communist element to it
A little bit. But
anyway,
okay. So with all of this being said, the EU has a lot of power. And so when you're a large corporation, multinational corporation like Microsoft, if you're talking about the world's largest economy, the EU, and you want to continue to do business in there and not get slapped with taxes and things like that, if they ask you, hey, show us why this isn't a monopoly practice, instead of telling them to kick rocks and get lost, you typically take it seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's what they did. And so they had to wait for the European Union to determine if the acquisition was something that they would bless.
Right. Wow. I mean, it's amazing. And I saw that, and it kind of made me think about when we came up with our first products, we did that very thing. I'm like, why do I need a European Union approval? The EU symbol you see on these products, the E and the U looking thing, and or CE, I think what it looks like. And I did that very thing. I'm like, well, kick rocks. I don't give a crap. I'll sell here in the U.S. But you don't realize the power. And believe it or not, our first products were sold in Europe before they even were sold here. So made in China, invented here, made in China, sold in Europe.
See, and that's kind of why it's a big day for a Maryland company, and Microsoft, an American company. But that's why I used to have students and they'd say, well, why do we even care what the EU says? And because of what you just said. I mean, you made your product in China, you invented it in America, and you sold it in Europe.
Right.
If you're not paying attention to what the international courts are saying, then it's probably going to bite you in the butt.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's very interesting. But anyway, that kind of leads to the next topic, the state topic as well that you talked about. That's also a national, international, and a state topic as well. But you also have some other topics here.
IonQ is a business that spun out of the University of Maryland. And here we are in the University of Maryland building. It is a quantum computing company. It is now being recognized as the first quantum computing company to go public.
Wow, amazing.
For those of you who don't know what that means, most businesses are private, which means the owners, one person, two people. There's a limited number of shareholders.
Right.
When you go public, you are taking shares or ownership of your business and you are listing them on a public exchange.
Right. So anyone can have access to your company. Anyone with money can buy shares of the company.
Liquidity. That's what I always like to say. So when you go public, it's all about creating liquidity in your business. And if you have a private company and you've built it, and sometimes there's these things called unicorns, which are private companies that are worth $1 billion.
Right.
But the thing that no one ever talks about.
Cargo, Oprah Winfrey's companies.
Private.
Because they were asked her to go, would she consider going public? She said no.
Well, it's because she already has cash.
Exactly. She's got the money. Right.
So when you're a unicorn, and let's say you worked for a unicorn, right? And you're like, I don't know, the director of engineering, and they give you all these shares, and they're like, oh yeah, we're worth $4 billion. Well, what happens if you've been the director of engineering for 10 years and you want to leave? What do you do with all the shares that you have?
Right.
Now, there are means to exchange them. You can find people typically that'll buy them if the company's big enough, but they're not going to give you the full market value of your shares.
I used to work for a company that wasn't a unicorn, but it's a small company located here in Southern Maryland, and they're private, but they offered shares, stock options in the company.
Yeah.
So like you said, so we have this money that's sitting there, and like I said, we're not going to get the total value of those shares so I still have it sitting with the company with the hope that someday maybe they will go private or they will
public.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like my horror story is always that I had a 6% stake in a private company, and they went through some fundraising rounds, and for one reason or another, I wanted to leave. I wanted to cash out, and the accounting books, let's just say the accounting books, they said the company was worth X. So my 6%, I was like, heck yeah. That's a lot of money.
6% of a lot of money is a lot of money.
But the best offer I could get was like 33 cents on every dollar of the shares that I owned.
Wow.
And honestly, at that point in time, I just said, you know what? I don't want to own these shares anymore. Because
So you cashed out?
I cashed out. So for all these people out there that, they work for a $1 billion unicorn, it's all about liquidity. And so companies go public. So companies like IonQ, they go public a lot of times because the people who work for the company, they deserve to be paid.
Right.
And a lot of them have been working years for less money than they would earn somewhere else in return for shares in the company.
Right.
And then they say after a few years, they're looking at the CEO and they're going, hey, I've been working for, the same salary as, like someone who's 5-10 years younger than me.
Right.
Because you've given me all these shares, I can't do anything with these shares. We got to go public. A lot of times the employees are the ones that push.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, most people don't realize that because if you're the CEO, you're probably getting paid pretty well. You're also probably holding way more shares than the employees.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to say, okay, I want to leave, it's a lot easier for you to leave.
Absolutely.
A lot easier for you to get paid out. And then ultimately when an investor, an early investor puts money into your company, they're also the ones pressuring you to go public because they don't want to lose money.
Right.
And so when you go public and you list on an exchange, it's liquidity. That's why you're doing it.
Yeah, so you get liquid capital overnight from investors that, I'm going to put some money in IonQ. And
that's right. That's
now,
right.
Overnight, I've gotten 100,000 investors on an average of X amount of dollars per investment per share. So now you made a couple $1 million overnight.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so the topic I wanted to raise and I wanted to ask you about, at least what your thoughts are, is IonQ went public through something called a SPAC. Okay. SPAC stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Company.
Right.
These have been around for a few years, but they are extremely popular right now. They started to pick up steam last year. They've continued into this year. And so I know what it is, but I want to make sure that I explain it properly. So I'm going to read the definition. A SPAC raises capital through an initial public offering, going public, for the purpose of acquiring an existing operating company. Subsequently, an operating company can merge with or be acquired by the publicly traded SPAC and become a listed company in lieu of executing its own IPO. Okay, real quick. When you go public, you do something called an initial public offering.
Mm-hmm.
That is how you go from being a private company to a public company on an exchange. Let's say you wanted to get listed on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. You are a private company. You are Jordan R&D. The only way to get onto the New York Stock Exchange is through an initial public offering.
Right.
Now, here's the part that I want to ask Brian to comment on. So what a SPAC is doing is it's bypassing a major player in going public. The major player that they're bypassing are investment banks. So typically, when a company goes public and they have to go through this initial public offering process, they've got to file paperwork.
Right.
They've got to hire lawyers. They've got to find enough people that are going to buy the stock in the first day to prove that the stock has liquidity so it can stay on the exchange. There's all these different rules. Most of the time, they're paying investment bankers a large amount of money to help them do this. The SPAC bypasses the need for an investment banker because the SPAC does all the work and then gets a ticker symbol and then immediately upon going public acquires the given company.
Right.
Or group of companies. Sometimes they do multiple companies at the same time.
I like it.
I figured you'd say that.
I love it. It's business is changing. How long have these SPACs been around?
A few years.
Right. It's fairly new. It kind of reminds me of when LLCs first came out, limited liability companies in the 70s. People didn't understand because in order to get you had to be an S corp or a C corp to be incorporated, but that was a lot of paperwork. It was a lot of things you had to do. But what if I was a small company and I wasn't bringing in, $2.3 million? I was only bringing in a couple $1,000s a month or whatever,
Yeah.
but I still wanted that separation, of the big companies. So this LLC thing came about. So I still had that separation between myself personally and the company. This is what this sounds like. Sounds similar to that. Not for protection, but it allows small companies
There you go.
to go public without having the benefit of an investment banker. I love it. I absolutely love it. And my brother and I were talking about this not too long ago. My brother's an investor, big time guy like yourself, knows a lot about the stock market.
I don't know if I'm a big time investor, but
you know a heck of a lot more than me, and I've
maybe
learned quite a bit from you and him. You both are younger than me, so anyway, we were talking about that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you have small companies going public all the time. Yeah, guys working in their garage that are getting under these SPACs that are going up." And he's the one that told me about it. I'm like, "What?" And then you just reiterated what he said. I said, "I love this idea."
So I don't know the exact terms of the deal with IonQ. Based on what I've read, it sounds like they went public through a SPAC as the only entity that was underneath of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a SPAC was formed, special acquisition company, which is basically aggregating cash. Okay. And the purpose of aggregating that cash is to underwrite a company that's going to go public.
Correct.
And so what you're doing is you're injecting liquidity.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as that company lists, you're saying we're buying shares. And as soon as you buy those shares, all of a sudden there's a means for exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The SPACs that I've traditionally seen are not necessarily just one company.
Right.
They're multiple companies together. And this is the part that confuses people. Okay. So think of it like this. You've got the SPAC up here. Okay. Huge pot of cash. SPAC does all the paperwork, goes through the Securities and Exchange Commission. And then typically they come up with a profile of what type of company they want to work with.
Right.
So for example, let's say that, because I know for a fact that this exists, aviation SPACs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a group of very wealthy individuals, sometimes bankers, sometimes not, will say, all right, we're forming a SPAC. We all have a background in aviation. We all know a lot about the aviation industry. So we're going to raise, I don't know, $500 million. It all goes into that special acquisition parent company. All right. And then what they do is they actually go out to the market, and they've got like a certain amount of time. I can't remember what it is. It's like between 6 and 9 months or something. Mm-hmm. And they go look for other smaller companies that are all in the aviation space, but they might do something a little bit different than the other ones.
Right.
And the profile typically is, it's like a company that's right on the cusp of being able to go public on their own, but they don't want to spend all the money.
Right.
So like if you're a mid-tier aviation company, you got a great product, you're making a lot of money in revenue, but you don't want to pay an investment banker to take you public. These SPACs are just going around and poaching you.
That's exactly what's happening with the company I used to work for that I won't mention up here because I don't know what they're doing now. But that was one of the things that was a viable option because they talked about that, because they're a mid-sized company.
Yep.
They're not, huge,
Mm-hmm.
like the Boeings or the Raytheons or anything like that. But that was an option, so that's one of the reasons I great company, loved working for them, but I really I was this close to hanging around a little bit longer to see how this all worked out. So
I love SPACs. Maybe a lot of people say they're bubbly, meaning like maybe they're too overhyped, but as an entrepreneur, this is like your best friend.
So how does the government and how do large corporations feel about these SPACs?
Well, I know investment bankers hate them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're an investment banker, you make money on broker accounts, buying and selling stocks and bonds and things like that. But you also make a lot of money on underwriting companies. Mm-hmm. Because when you underwrite a company as an investment banker, not only do you get paid cash to do it, you also get to buy the shares for a discounted price.
Really?
Absolutely.
I never knew that. That's not considered insider trading or anything?
Nope, because it's considered part of the payment.
The perk. It's
part of the payment for you to do all the paperwork.
Really?
Yes.
I never knew that. That's news to me.
if you're in it, so here's
I
so
thought an investment banker, I thought you had to be separated from that. I
No.
didn't think you'd be allowed to
No,
buy
no,
any
no,
stock
no,
in the
no,
company
no.
that you're underwriting.
I'm gonna. This is completely hypothetical because this is not the exact. These are not the
I learn
exact.
something new every day, folks. I'm telling you, that's news to me.
These are not the exact numbers, but let's just pick like Uber.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't remember what they went. What they went for, but let's say you're Goldman Sachs. You're taking Uber public. Okay. It's still private.
Mhm.
You come to the table and you're like, we're going to take you public. Give us $500 million in cash. And also, we're going to take you public at $50. And when you hit the market, that exact moment you hit the market, it's going to start trading at $50.
So we're gonna get it.
You're going to give it to us at $25.
That's crazy.
So the way they justify it is because right up until the moment the stock market opens on that first day,
Mhm.
all those shares are considered primary market.
But okay, now say that happens. Let's say I work for Uber, or I don't know, and I call Tommy Luganbill and I say, hey man, look, go ahead and buy. Now that's illegal, right?
We don't have to get into that.
Okay, well, the point is, I'm trying to make what I just suggested could be a little shady, but the bankers do it because they make the laws, or they encourage lawmakers to make the laws in their favor. To me, that just seems kind of, in my mind.
Here's the way
for you investment bankers out there, I'm sorry, don't come after me.
Here's the way they justify it. In order to provide the liquidity, right? Because that's like the biggest part about getting onto an exchange.
Sure.
In order to provide the liquidity, we should get it for a cheaper price.
Wow. I mean, I don't know. I guess
so immediately. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Immediately when those companies go public, that investment bank is making a crap load of money because the shares are immediately trading for, most of the time, double the value that they bought it at.
Crazy.
Now, they're not going to go in and sell them all immediately because then they're just going to tank the price of the stock, and they don't want to do that.
Right. But still, they have a stock that's already
they can't lose.
Double. Right.
They can't lose. What they do is they sell enough to cover all the expenses that went into it.
That's new.
And then guess what? Those same investment bankers are also brokerage houses. So if you're Goldman Sachs and you're taking Uber public, okay, but you also buy and sell stocks for investors, and you just got your hands on a ton of cheap Uber stock, what are you going to be telling the people that you're buying and selling stocks for? You're going to tell them all to buy Uber stock.
Right, absolutely.
Because you already own a ton of it.
Wow. Well, that leads to my next suggestion. I think we should quit what we're doing here and become investment bankers. You think we can invest like $100 a piece, maybe?
Yeah, maybe that'll do it for us. Anyway, the SPAC is the entrepreneur's friend. That's why the investment bankers hate it, because entrepreneurs were tired of getting fleeced.
Right.
All right, last topic, and then we're wrapping up. Locally, we're doing a fun event between Techport, Southern Maryland Loves You, and Tobacco Barn Distillery, and the Chamber of Commerce, and a whole bunch of people.
Right.
Consider Jordan R&D part of that as well. March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, we're doing a cork drop. So we are selling donated corks. I don't know how to say that. $20 donated to Southern Maryland Loves You gets you a cork. All right, the top of a bourbon bottle. This is a cap. Just imagine this is a bottle cork. Okay, $20 gets you this. Your name gets associated with a number, 1 through however many people buy them. On St. Patrick's Day, we're putting them into a bucket. We are sitting at an airport, so we have gotten a generous local pilot and owner of a helicopter to donate their time and the use of their helicopter for us to take the bucket of corks that we're selling / donating. We are getting into the helicopter. We are flying to Tobacco Barn Distillery. where there's a giant cornfield. In the middle of the cornfield, there will be a target. We will open the helicopter door. We will dump all the corks out towards the target. Whoever gets closest to the target wins the prize.
That's awesome.
All right, there you go. But there's 3 prizes. So the way it's going to happen is first closest gets to pick out of 3 prizes. Second closest gets to pick out of the remaining 2 prizes. And third closest gets to keep the 3rd prize that's left.
Okay.
So it's all for charity. Tobacco Barn Distillery, thank you for doing this. All the money's going towards Southern Maryland Loves You, a 501c3. Details on how to purchase cork/donate $20 will be shared when this video is done. And what happens is you will click the link, you'll go to the Tobacco Barn Distillery website, and there's a button right there, and it just says buy a cork today. And as soon as you do that, $20, and boom, we'll get your name, you'll have your number on a cork. And March 17th, in spirit of St. Patrick, which has nothing to do with helicopters, not even booze either.
Not even a green helicopter, it's red.
Yeah.
Clover
But we'll have a leprechaun.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not the leprechaun, but we will have a leprechaun. And it's a fun event. And so real purpose of this is to raise money for the 501c3, but also to show people that there's lots of crazy things down here.
Right. Lots of crazy things we're doing. St. Mary's, Southern Maryland Loves You, again, doing wonderful things with the hot box. One's been in operation now for almost over a year now, or close to a year.
Yeah, we're getting close to a year.
It's been constantly operating in Waldorf or La Plata.
La Plata, yeah.
The hospital in La Plata. So they're doing great things. Yeah, buy a cork and help support that. That's amazing.
Well, that's all I got. So I don't know about you. Happy International Women's Day.
Yes, yes. All you women out there, thank you for all that you do. You know, we appreciate it. We wouldn't be here without women. So thank you.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. Not even just because of the giving birth part, but there's lots of women that have saved me from doing stupid things over the years.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I could keep talking for another couple hours on that alone.
So God bless women. God bless you. God bless me. God bless all of us. And thanks for joining us. And we will be back in 2 weeks. And thanks. This was interesting.
Thank you. This was good. Thanks, Tommy. I learned something today. Hopefully you learned something too.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And stay tuned for the next one. See you later.